point. Some that don't. Excuse me, she wanted to know some of the hostas that do well in our area, and there are definitely hostas that do well and some that really don't. Like Togadamas, interesting, kind of like a Saboldiana hosta, crinkledy, rounded, the coloration is excellent. Slow, and then in our climate, it just doesn't do very well. And unless you have nothing but a lot of time and you really like working with hostas and you just love that Tokudama, get it and try it. If it doesn't work, don't. That's one of the main ones that other than that, most of them do fairly well. You have Saboldianas, which is a big, round, blue type hosta. And that blue is a powder on the leaf surface that if you water on your blue hostas from above, it washes that off a little quicker. So when you're watering, if you could water up underneath, it'll save that blue powder. You can actually take that blue powder in the spring and rub it right off, and it turns to green. So if you want to find hostas, blue hostas that do well here, Love Pat, that's going to have an extended period of blue. Some of the blues, they'll be gone after a couple of weeks, and then other blues stay a lot longer. Halcyon, a small blue, it'll stay blue a long time. Love Pat stays blue for quite a while as well. Do I have which? Love Pat, we have Love Pat. Yeah, it's a slow grower, and on it. I found where I was. We were talking about how long it takes for the characteristics to actually develop. They've been evaluating that hosta for 7 or 8 years again, and they decide that the characteristics are finally good because it takes that long for the characteristics completely develop in that hosta. They say it's rounded, crinkledy, and it gets X big. And so it's going to take 5 to 7 years. And if you dig that thing up and divide it, you just set it back. So the distinctive hostas, the slow-growing hostas, leave them in the ground and don't try moving. Kind of like a peony. You don't really want to be moving peonies. And if you got to give Aunt Matilda her little hosta there, leave Mother in the ground, and when the eyes are just starting to come up, get you a nice sharp spade and brutally cut a piece of pie out of that hosta and leave Mother in there, and then you can begin to propagate. Yes. Voles. What to do about voles? I'd have to look at my book again, but that's tough. I don't know. It's been a while since I've had that question. He hadn't wanted to know what to do about voles. And I think you can poison them. I think they're eating the roots. Their little cousin there doesn't. And if you can eliminate the food source, then you can eliminate them. Try and live with them. Yes?
I have read that the more yellow the leaf is, the more tolerant it is to sun, and the bluer it is, the less tolerant it is. Is that true?
Almost, kind of, hardly, not really. She wanted to know if the golds were more sun tolerant than the blues. Not necessarily. There are other factors like substance, how thick is that leaf, and the golds, for me, a lot of the golds, it turns to white and light, and that is very weak in that plant system. So it would be less tolerant. I know that 4 or 5 years ago they came out with sun power, and that got into one of the magazines. We've never been able to keep enough sun power every year. We add to it, and because I think it was Martha Stewart, somebody said that that's a hosta for the sun, not in Arkansas in the afternoon. No. If you want a hosta good for the sun, the most tolerant, Francine. It's a really nice, dark, good, clean, narrow, white edge, but it's one of the most sun tolerant. Hyacinthina is another one. It's just a green one, but it is, of all the others, in drought tolerance, that one truly is drought tolerant. hyacinthina. That's going to be a little more difficult to find. We have it at our nursery at our house, but we don't have it here.
And what about the
Francie, C-double-E at the end, Francie.
Now, what color is that?
Dark green leaf and a clear white edge. The clear white edges don't really come till later. Like orange marmalade, it'll come out with a dark green edge and kind of a yellowish in the center. And then it fades as the season progresses, it fades to white. And it really kind of changes. One of the nice and newer hostas that we like here lately is orange marmalade. But again, if it's that white and that bright and that sun is going to be really hard on it. It's not going to be best. I'm sorry, pardon. When should you divide and transplant? Fall is the best time for planting. 90%. Other than things that are not winter tolerant, Fatsia, gardenias, jasmine, things like that. You need to go in the spring and have some spring, summer, and fall before it has to go through the winter. The rest of the world, you get that nice, cool weather, and this earth is nice and warm from the sun all year. So those roots, even as that plant is dormant, those roots are getting established. If you planted the same hosta in a container, had two identical, planted it in the spring, left it in the container, planted it in the fall, you would see no difference. Because it gets to go through the fall, the nice period, pardon me, and then the spring, another nice period before it has to go through our hard time, the summer. So you give it 2 cycles before you go to the one. Any other questions?
With the shade and the hostas, can you name some other plants? In particular, I can't think what they're called, but they're passiflower or something like that grow with the hostas plant.
Companion plants and what are good plants for hostas? The natural one is fern. You have a good, thick, heavy, rounded leaf, and then you go to the nice frilly to give you some contrast in form. And in the shade, you're working with more tone. You're going to have fewer flowers. So you need to evaluate the content and the tone and the value, so to speak, of that green. So you have darker greens, lighter greens, and so it works throughout the year. But ferns, hellebores.
What I was thinking.
Yeah.
Those?
And we specialize in shade gardens, so if you need companion plants, there are several. The new one that we've been working, not really new, but we haven't had it in Arkansas for very long. Canthus, really a dramatic plant. And there's some wild geraniums, not the annual geraniums, and then woodland type plants. If you don't have a canopy, make a canopy. If you have a canopy, create an understory and create that forest floor. Coral bells, tiarellas. Yeah, they have a tiarella and a hooparella. And they put them together, and now we have a hooparella. Yes, ma'am.
I'm trying to develop a hosta bed, and I have lots of compost leaves. Would it be good to till some of those into that area before I plant?
She has a bed, and she wants to know if you ought to till leaves in there. If they're slightly composted, yes. If they're not very well composted, you can till them in, but leave it there for a little bit. As new material enters into the soil, as it begins to decompose, it robs the soil of nitrogen. It takes energy to do that. And then once it gets up to that balance, then it begins to give the nutrients. So try and keep your fresh organic material out of the inside structure of the soil. You can ground those up and put them on top, and then it slowly decomposes. But if you keep doing that, it builds soil. And you want those earthworms, you want those bugs, you want those micronutrients, you want all that rich, good stuff in there. The more you got, the better it's going to be. Any other questions? How are we doing on time? 10 old minutes. Let's see. Hostas. We were talking about vision.